It's not really about the label, but it is how you show up. And if how you show up is in through your wounding, then the life looks different that way. If you show up with the fullness of love, which is through your healing, that life looks different. And the years of healing, the years of searching, whether for this call, the sort of exploration through religion and outside of religion, through traditions that were beyond my cultural understanding, it was preparing me for that yes. And then in that yes, I got to like upgrade in the Super Mario Brother game, like so many levels. It was crazy.
Oh man, what an amazing conversation. It was really, really neat to get the chance to talk with Lisann Valentine. She is just such a wise woman. She is a truly magical person. This conversation is so valuable in the things that we talked about dealing with, learning how to handle our feelings and our emotions and the aftermath of them, learning how to not hold things in judgment. I don't want to ramble on too much, but I do want to hype it up that this is really worth listening to. I really want to encourage you as you listen to this conversation, if it is at all possible, get a notebook and a pen and write down the things that just jump at you. Pause it and listen again, because there is a lot here. And I'm really glad that you're here and that you get to experience this. Please stick around after the conversation, because I have some more thoughts that I'd like to share, after you've already had a chance to listen, of my own processing of this time. Without any further ado, let's jump in.
Heartfelt conversations can change the world. Here's the Epic Kate podcast.
Lisann, I'm so excited to get to talk to you. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, so you can go ahead and do that now.
Hi, I'm Lisann Valentine. I am an actress, an author, and a fifth generation intuitive healer, also known as a shaman. And I'm so excited to be on your podcast, Katie.
I am really, really interested in just how you see the world through magic, through intuition, through helping people unlock that, and especially about the shaman call. I know in the past you've said that it was something that you turned down, but I'd love to hear how you originally received that call. But maybe it might be a better question to start with is, when is the first time in your life that you really felt like, I'm different, there is magic and it is real?
I was really little. I think I didn't just differentiate it as being like, I don't know that when did I see it differently? Because it felt very normal to me. I was 8 years old when I first got a journal, and I used to write to the divine in it. My mom was like, write to God. And I was like, cool, let's do that. And then I would get the answers back. And so like, I didn't know that wasn't like a thing for people. I was 8. I had no idea that God was my pen pal. When was it? When did I see the world differently? I don't know. I just always saw connections and threads and everything. So it's very normal to me. I think when I started seeing humans make differentiations for me, when to be more practical, not to be a dreamer, things like that. When I was hearing a lot of rules, I think that's when I started feeling different. And the difference felt like, oh, I needed to shift or adjust. I needed to be different.
Like to conform, to fit in, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So how did you first get introduced to the whole aspect of your life that it's in your blood, it's in your DNA, this shaman culture?
It's so, I think it's easier to say like it was just always part of my family. Like it was just, we didn't use the word shaman. We didn't use any labels at all. So we were doing energy healing for as long as I can remember. My mom would do it to me. I would see my grandmother do it to my grandfather. We didn't call it energy healing. I just knew that if we weren't feeling great, hands would appear like an elder would put their hands on wherever, just hovering over wherever we didn't feel good. Or if we felt like we needed a blessing, it would come to our forehead, right? And then I just started seeing parallels when I was going to church. So I would see the parallel and make the connection of like, this is the same, but no one's talking about it. But we're not supposed to tell anyone at the church. Like, we're just not supposed to talk about it, period. So it just felt very secreted.
Was it an evangelical culture that you grew up in?
No, no, I went to Catholic school. But then in the summers we would go to maybe my aunt's house. She was Pentecostal, but I saw a lot of the parallels there too, of what I was growing up with in the secret, in the secret of our family.
So it really
was like a lot of divination and stuff, but we never talked about it, you know.
Okay, so it really was a keep this on the down low, don't bring this up kind of a thing, or it was just the unspoken rule?
Unspoken rule. It was just like what. So I grew up in a very big family. So like, who else were we gonna tell? Like, we had each other. There was no one else to talk to about this, and it never occurred to me to bring it outside of school. But when I was learning things in church, it did feel like, oh, I shouldn't talk about this. Do you know what I mean? So no one was telling me not to, but it wasn't shared outside of the family.
So how did you get that first call? What was that like?
I knew there was a call. So I knew from little. So I remember a nun started talking about the call that she got to be a nun. And I don't know why she was telling the story. It was something about when she had gone to Puerto Rico. But I sat up and I was like, what is this call? Like, I knew I had one. Is it this? And I think maybe I was in 6th grade or something. And I go up to the nun and I go, how do I know? How do I know when I get a call? Like, who calls me? And what do they say? And the nun was like laughing, and she was like, you just know, like, it's a feeling. You just know that you have this calling to do something. And then she's like, do you think you feel like being a nun is something that you'd want to do? And I thought about it. I asked her a lot of questions. I was like, no, I want to have a boyfriend. So no, I don't think it's that. But I'm gonna keep listening for this thing that you're talking about. And then so over the years, I was looking for the call. Like, I remember I thought I wanted to be a priest. When I heard about priest, I was like, I can do that. I would be very good at that. And then I was like, heard all the rules, like I couldn't do it. I go, well, that's garbage. Like, I don't want to do it now. Like, but this is so unfair. Like, there was a lot of that. When I was being called to ayahuasca, I was in my 20s. And I was very curious, and that was not, oh, I have such a weird shadow on my face. Oh my God, what is that? That's from the window outside. Sorry. I'm not trying to be mysterious. It's just so weird. Like,
no
like
worries.
the character Wednesday Addams' mom, you know, how she has like the Wednesday Addams from the Addams family. The mom always has some type of light over her eye. And like, to make her mysterious. Sorry. Anyway, ayahuasca called. I was very curious, and I'm from New York, so I was like, after about a week of digging into what this ayahuasca thing was, and like something very familiar about all of it, I go, no, I don't see myself going to rainforest. I'm gonna go and die there, not doing that, and I shut it down. And then it took about a decade before the call came again, and then this time it was very visceral and it was very physical, and it was undeniable.
So was ayahuasca a part of that the other time around?
This time when I said yes?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was so wild. So how to explain? So I've been meditating since I was very little. I was maybe 13 years old. First time another nun taught me how to meditate. And I saw the connection to prayer, and I would have I experienced the Holy Spirit when I was very little. What other people would call Kundalini, divine love, basically. Course, like a physical experience of it coursing through my body. Sorry, energy's moving. If I do that a lot, it's just like energy wants to move. And I just started making connections between like, oh, I have a very physical experience of the divine, and maybe not everybody feels this, you know? And when I got the call, I was actually listening to a Huna and a shaman talking on an app called Clubhouse. And they said something about lineage, and I felt energy shoot up my body, like physically, like woo, like electricity, but not external to me, right? And it was similar to what I would feel the Holy Spirit when I was little, but this was, I'm feeling it now, thank you. It would just happen consistently. So when the first time I felt that, I was I had it for like 3 days. I was maybe like 16. I felt this reverberation in my body. And this time it was just on and off. And I had to keep exploring what the Huna and what the shaman were, what that meant, what lineage was about. And then I started looking at my family, and it all sounded like my grandfather's grandmother, who was a healer in Puerto Rico. Like, he would always talk about how people came all over the island to meet her and to see her. And all the things we would learn on the weekends was connected to what he did with her. And I was like, there's something here. When I started digging, I found out that in our culture, the indigenous aspect of being Puerto Rican, their shamans were called boitiu. And that later became curanderas when we left sort of the indigenous aspect, and sort of like, there's a lot of mixed history on the island about why a lot of that was covered up. And they would call them curanderas, healers. And that for sure, my grandfather was a curandero. And whether his grandmother was she had a label, I'll never know. But this resonated, like I was sobbing. The minute I read Boitiu for the indigenous Taino on our island, I was like, this is it. This is what I am. And so when a shaman appeared to me in the etheric plane, not in meditation, in between sleep and wake, like they were in my room, they asked me if I was ready to say yes to the call of the shaman. And I said yes with my full heart. And then I bolted up right in my bed and was like, what did I say yes to? It's a very long-winded way of saying it's been a journey.
So how did that shift things in your perception, saying yes?
I mean, it shifted everything. I think it just put pieces together of how I lived my life over the years. You know, how I showed up, where intuition was part of my normal, and it just affected, like, it just put everything together in a way that made me understand myself more fully. And it made me, so this idea of like saying yes to being a shaman, it really means is like you're saying yes to the inner healing journey that requires you to look at the world through different lenses. And that can take on any label. It's not really about the label, but it is how you show up. And if how you show up is through your wounding, then the life looks different that way. If you show up with the fullness of love, which is through your healing, that life looks different. And the years of healing, the years of searching, whether for this call, the sort of exploration through religion and outside of religion, through traditions that were beyond my cultural understanding, it was preparing me for that yes. And then in that yes, I got to like upgrade in the Super Mario Brother game, like so many levels. It was crazy.
It was a super mushroom.
It really was. And I didn't take any psychedelics, not until this year. I'd never sat with psychedelics until this year because I never had to. I would sit in meditation and I would be in what would be like a psychedelic like experience. Shamans would show up, appear, give me medicines, like these bowls in meditation. And I would take them and then I would like go deeper into the meditation. So it would be like if you're having a daydream and someone showed up and said, here's a bowl. And you were like, sure, I'll drink this in my imagination that's happening in my living room. And then you went deeper into whatever state that is. And then you're experiencing what you're meant to experience by inviting the plant medicine, and to show to you, reveal to you, help you unravel and transmute, like shift something that you're needing to shift. And so I was having these experiences without taking anything.
Wow.
So for a long time, I was like stuck up. I was like, I don't need it. I just go there on my own. Do you know what I mean?
And people are like, what? Lucky? So I'm curious, who was it a member of your family that was there in that astral plane that presented the call to you?
It's an interesting question because yes and yes. Like they were members of my actual family that are no longer on this plane, and my spiritual family. So other shamans that I didn't have. So I never really researched shamanic culture throughout different traditions. I would see it first, like through eyes of innocence, and then my human would want to go research what I was looking at to get an understanding of what that tradition held, right? So even within my family, when I saw finally my two times great grandmother, like I knew it was her. Never saw a picture of her, but she looked a lot like my grandfather, and I knew it was her. And she had a very specific personality. So it was like, what is happening? And she was showing me things, showing me plants, like teaching me in this sort of meditation realm when they would show up. My grandfather showed up, my grandmother's shown up, like everyone shows up, like at some point,
Wow, that is amazing.
yeah.
It's so beyond my comprehension, but it's so fascinating to hear. And the thing I'm really interested in is how you use your gifts and how you're making the world a better place. And like I've been connected to you in little pockets of time, and there was a time when you said that you could see like my soul and you could see a shape of it. And so I was like, how do you see the world? Like, do you just see these like colors and shapes around people? I know that you okay. I've said enough. I'll let you pick what you want to talk about. I'm a professional.
You are. I'm still tripping over how I look with the shadow on my face. It's crazy. I
You
can't
look
fix it.
you look gorgeous, darling, gorgeous.
No, but I mean, like, it's so trippy to like this round because the ring light is, it makes me laugh. It's like, what is happening? Um, okay, so I want to rewind a little bit. So for me, shaman is the best expression of how all of my gifts show up, all of my intuitive gifts show up, and how I serve. And so when I'm able to show up through the eyes of the heart of compassion, through the lens of love, I get to see what other people don't see. So I get to see in the dark, right? I see the light in the dark, and I get help to guide people through whatever that looks like for them. And that is the best definition, like one who sees in the dark and helps another along the way. And that doesn't have to be that definition for anyone else, but that's what it is for me.
Hmm.
And so when I'm showing up as a spiritual coach for people, that's exactly what I'm doing. And when I see their essence, I'm seeing their energy. And so sometimes I'll see, sorry, energy wants to move. I'll see like it can be an aura. It's not always that. Like so light. It can be physical, looks like a physical person. So mediums would understand this. People that are mediums, they might see another energy next to, inside the other person, above it, or whatever. And I'm knowing, it took me time, that this is not an ancestor or another like entity. It's just the way their soul's expressing themselves in that moment. So I'll see different things. It'll be specific to why we're talking, typically, and it'll help me see whether or not they're aligned with their highest self, with that expression or not, depending on the placement. So your intuition is like you get to play with how your like blueprint looks. You get to see how it shows up for you. And so even though you said earlier that it's beyond the realm of your understanding, I love to challenge that perspective in people, because the more I explain my experiences, the more they start seeing that they actually do see. So like if you feel compelled to, I see you a lot in nature. So when you feel compelled to be by a specific tree, let's say, more so than others, or you feel compelled to like pick up a plant or be in your innocence and like talk to a butterfly or like chase after one, like these are all like behaviors that beckon you to experience life in such a tangible way that you're connecting on an energetic level with these things. And so that is an aspect of us as our humans and our intuition, right? Because kids are so freely expressing themselves when they're not being stunted through that intuitive lens, right? They see life like that. They don't have to talk about it or differentiate it or put it in a box because that's just their normal. So they either learn to put the lid on the box for everyone else's like comfort level, or they just explode with like this rainbow energy and they just get to be. They just get to be that, you know.
Yeah. They have no filter and no blocks, and they're just able to. I love that. I wrote that down. Experience life in a tangible way. It's really easy to just kind of get stuck in the digital or in the mundane and not actually experience it on purpose. I wanted to ask, when you talk about like you get kind of this feeling of, oh, the energy is moving, is that like spirit guides like around you, within you, that are wanting to talk? Because I've been experienced some of your channeled messages on your Instagram lives, so I'm curious if that's connected.
I think it's a physical indication for me to pay attention to that, the importance of the subject matter, and to acknowledge that energy is trying to move. So, like, if you think of something being kind of stunted or stuck, and now we're we're opening the door, like pulling up the curtains, the dust starts moving around, like we need to air it out. Like, that's the feeling of like either I need to say something and then it'll be stuck either here, it might be stuck in my throat or in my chest, or I might feel like tension somewhere in my body. But mostly I say energy is moving when it feels like it wants to, like, it feels like if I'm about to burp, but I'm not. Like, there's no need for me to be burping. Does that make sense? Like, it's consistent of a behavior that goes away all of a sudden. So I'll know the difference typically. I don't know. It feels like someone wants to talk. It feels like a sign. So intuition shows up in different ways, right? You can be physical. You might all of a sudden walk into a room and feel like super heavy and sad, and it's so outside of you in that moment that if you're not paying attention, you might claim it. But it just might be that you're just feeling the room, or you're feeling someone in the room, right? And so really when I say like experience life in a tangible way, it's like being so mindful that you can't help but do that. Getting so centered on your breath that you can't help but really be aware, an awareness of where you are in this world. Like, I'm sitting right here, I feel my feet are folded on the chair. Like, really just taking those moments, because it'll help you start understanding the different pings of intuition of how it shows up for you. And so that is energy moving. That's one way my intuition expresses itself. So I'll know to pay attention and acknowledge it verbally. Or if I feel like a shimmer of energy up my leg or something, I'll say thank you, because the more I acknowledge it, the more my human mind is in awareness of when it's happening. And then I'm just paying attention until more of it shows up, right? I'm honoring it. I'm saying, yes, I feel that. Like, so whether or not it's a spirit guide or not, whether or not it's my higher self or not, I don't really pause to ask. I know it's all from the realm of unconditional love, so I'm like okay with it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Glad I asked.
Yeah.
Since I brought up the channeling thing, I'd love to hear like how that came about. Like, what was that like for that first time?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I think that we all channel at all different times. I think the way you know, again, is mindfulness, paying attention to how you feel in your body at that moment. It is such a sense of confidence, but not egoic confidence. It is like from love. So it's like the words sometimes feel beyond me, and I start noticing my expressions change, or like how my voice shifts in register, the speed with which I start speaking. I've noticed, you start learning how to feel it coming in your body, if that makes sense. Like this sort of, oh, this is happening, okay. And I pushed it down. I can feel when I'm pushing it down. I think anytime I've written anything, I can feel the difference. You can channel writing. So if you're writing something, all of a sudden it's like your poetry, I would say that's channeled, right? That's the spark of intuition, your muse, the divine, whatever it is that you want to call it. That download you get, that this poem is coming so fast that you need to get it out. It wants to exist in the world. It wants to be birthed. That to me is channeling. Like, it just takes different forms. I don't remember the first time. I'm pretty sure I was doing it since little.
Wow.
Because
Even with the
yeah,
because I remember when I was on the live with you, listening to your live stream, and it was such a surprise how low your register went. And I was like, I'm embarrassed to ask, but are you channeling? Do you remember when I asked that? Like, you're
I
like,
do.
no, it's
Yeah.
nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a legitimate question.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So it's just like not everyone's gonna notice that my voice changed. You're attuned to the shift. You know, you have an affinity for music, so your clear audience is probably very sharp the way you hear. I mean, from my perspective anyway. And we could talk about that if you want. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure since little, but I could not tell you the moment. I think I noticed it more in writing when I would write to God and God would write back. I think I noticed it more just because I was little and the responses I get were always from this peaceful place, even if I was in a state of chaos. The answers are always calm and beautiful.
When God was writing back, was it like you weren't your hand was just kind of going and then you read it, or it was kind of like you
Simultaneous. It's like without a filter.
hmm.
It's without a filter. If I ever felt something like a pressure on my hand or something outside of me that didn't feel the same, like it's through you. Like in my perspective, it's through you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And I can't, if I'm pausing to filter, then I know my human's involved, you know?
And I know that's something that you're really passionate about is that hygiene, that you don't let anybody just come in and take over. You keep your body, you're safe, and your autonomy and your free will and all that jazz.
That's like one of the most important things. And I think that's where a lot of fear comes in for people when they're like, well, how do I know what I'm hearing is like good, right? These are the labels we put on. How do I know it's good? And so at the very essence of who we are is goodness. And that's not easy for everyone to hear because we live in a society that wants there to be a definition between good and bad. Something has to be black or white. And the truth is, we're all created, in my perspective, my truth, rather, not everyone's truth. If we're all here to be emanations of love in whatever form that takes, then how we present, how we show up, and how we express that love will be individual to us, but it'll always have that feeling of love within it. And love at its pure, oh, feeling so much pressure in my spine. Love in its purest form shows up and accepts you and shows up as you. And there is no difference. I think because I'm no longer in a space of, I used to be so afraid, Katie, like I would feel energies that were heavier and then something else would come through me, like so much power. So love is like for me not always this tender thing, the tender precious thing. It's the ferocious mom love.
Mm.
You know what I mean? How a mom can be so like step in front of their kids, be like, yeah, it's a roar, it's a bear, it's a lion, like it's that kind of love. And I would feel that come through me and I wouldn't be afraid anymore. And I would use my words to claim the space again and shift the energy of the room. And I stopped seeing this is like entities or beings or things that were like interfering, right? Like this bad thing. I started seeing that we people, we dance with so much heavy energy and we leave that imprint wherever we go.
Mm.
And if we decide to dance with lighter energy, we leave that imprint wherever we go. And some of us can feel it, right? And some of us want to shift it if you've left it behind. It's kind of like you wore your muddy shoes inside the house. It's not like the house is a mess. It's just that you just left a trace of mud on the floor. Do you know what I mean? And so when I teach people how to claim their sovereignty, how to claim their energy, how to wash their hands, how to affirm to themselves and use visualizations to feel a sense of peace, it's so that way they're not in a state of fear all the time.
Mm. I tried to take some of the things that I learned from you from different things, like when things were really stressful with the kids and just like lots of yelling and not paying attention for bedtime, to, okay guys, we're going to open the window, we're going to take all of our bad feelings and we're going to let it out into the wind. And
Yeah. What do they say?
it has helped a few times. It has worked.
Yeah.
I think
I
my
mean, I
girls are
think
very empathetic or empathic, possibly. I think maybe kids take on a lot of feelings even more than grown-ups.
it's the muddy shoes,
Mm.
right? Like sometimes grown-ups are just so used to it, they don't ever take a moment to like, let's wipe this off the floor. So the mud just keeps caking and caking and caking, and the humans trip on it and they get all pissed off. They're yelling about it, whatever, but like you never took a moment to just like get it off the floor. And like kids are like, I see it, we can play with it, let's play with it. Like they're like, whatever, like they're not judging it, you know? And then they're in trouble because their hands are a mess, and the adults are like, you know, what'd you do? And it's like, hello, adults, you did this.
Mm.
You tracked it to the floor, you know?
Ooh. That
And
is
the
a very
part,
painful mental picture. Thank you.
well, because if you're owning it like through the lens of blame, the difference, right? If I'm saying you were outside taking care of everything and you walked and you tracked mud in the house, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, but sometimes as adults we're so used to like blame is like an easy thing to get into. Who's at fault? So that way we can point my finger and now we can solve this. I need to know in my brain how to respond. Am I fighting? Am I fleeing from this? My brain just wants an answer. As kids, this isn't not going to affect them. This doesn't matter, right? Kids really don't care. When you're little, you might be playing with insects and like it doesn't faze you. But as an adult, we'll come in. Don't do that in that dress. Energy move to that. Like don't sit that way, don't behave that way. It's not appropriate or whatever. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to let anyone just run rampant and do whatever they feel like when they feel like it. There's so many layers to that. There's wisdom, there's coming from a place of discernment, teaching that to kids. Because at the end of the day, we were those kids. We were those kids that wanted to be free and play and were stunted and told no. And then we just inevitably repeat that and it just shows up in a different way. So
Mm.
the lesson is that we get to learn from our kids is to sort of heal that. If the floor is dirty, so what? Do you know what I mean? Like we'll get to it, it'll be okay. It's not the end of the world, there's no one to blame. And so if kids are expressing themselves in a way that feels uncomfortable to the adult, an adult gets to look at why they feel uncomfortable. What's the boundary that's crossed? Why are they feeling not heard? Because at the end of the day, the adult is a kid who wasn't heard, right? And is trying to get that now from their child. Their child's feeling chaos, and this is a cycle. It's a cycle. They're all dancing this energy back and forth.
Yeah. So have you done a lot? Do you connect with your inner child? Is that a part of your world?
I feel like all I am is a kid running around in this world. I literally like it doesn't feel separate from me. I've done work with it, like that inner child model, like sort of there are times where my inner child is teaching me more than I could teach it. Right. And there are times when I know that this version of me gets to show up for that kid that wasn't held. You know, all that stuff is helpful. Like these are all just tools, right?
Mm.
I think the thing that I teach people about hygiene, the most important part, going back to that, is because it's not about bypassing the emotion, right? It's not about saying, let's get rid of it. It's about getting curious and looking at it. Why is it showing up? What is it here to teach me? And that is the process of letting it go. So having a heavy emotion that's not yours and throwing it out the window is awesome because it immediately shifts the energy because it wasn't theirs to begin with. But if they, meaning the child or you as the adult that is the child, gets to look at the emotion and say, hey, why is this showing up? What is it here to teach me? Like if it's a physical being, why is the anger showing up? Why is the fear showing up? Why is the resentment showing up? Why is lack showing up? Why are these things here what are they here to teach me? Why are they here? Why do they show up at my door? Why are they tracking mud through my house? It's because you're meant to look at it.
Mm.
You're meant to look at it, not let it cake up on the floor so you can trip over it later and then blame someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so sometimes we want the thing outside of ourselves. We want the monster. We want the demon. We want the bad guy. But we're that. Do you know what I mean? Like we're that. We're showing up as that so we can pay attention, right? We're the monster. We're the monster in the closet. That's us. The thing we didn't face, you know?
Mm.
So,
Powerful stuff. It's so interesting to talk to these to different kinds of people in this world, and people, there's these like misconceptions about it, you know, like people hear shaman and they think this Western, you know, bones in the nose and potions around the neck kind of thing. And it's like, no, there's none of this going on here. This is the inner work. This is the practical inner work. Who
yeah.
who are the people that your heart breaks for, that you want to share your gifts with?
Um, I think I just get to share my gifts with whoever is willing to hear, willing to witness and see themselves within that. My heart breaks. My heart breaks when there's like judgment and anger and rage
Mm.
in the name of God or divinity. When like that to me, I think my heart breaks there because it feels like a wounding showing up as piety.
Can I ask, uh, is that a wound that is particular to you, that you had to work really hard to deal with, that rage and anger and judgment?
Oh my God. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think feeling safe at home, and it's interesting because I don't want to paint a specific picture. Like, there's no blame or judgment now. I love my parents, but like my father was an alcoholic. My parents, they were not healthy together. They did the best they could, but empaths are made because we get to hone our intuition so that way we can feel safe in the world we live in, right? And whether we're cognizant of it or not, we're trying to test the temperature of the humans around us to see if it's safe. Are we going to die here? At the very core, is that, are we dying today? Like, I need to make sure I'm not going to die. And not that my physical life was ever in danger, but the very core of it, our brain wants to know, how do we respond? And so to protect us, it's a very base level instinctual thing. Our brain needs to know the answer to this. And so you hone your intuition. Thank you. I feel that to such a degree so that way you can pay attention to the humans around you, your caretakers, right? Or just anyone. Um, if you choose to continue to hone your intuition, you get to look at it from a different lens. But growing up, when I felt the energy of anger, it never felt safe because I never knew when the chaos was about to erupt. And so when I see that, and then like the energy of blame, or that, like so many things that I got to witness as a child that actually informed who I am today. When I see it take the shape as like piety, right? The reason why I think it shows up, not because of what I experienced specifically within my family, I think it's in all of our DNA. This idea of like being crucified, being hurt, being killed for your beliefs. This is so, it runs so deep, right? This idea that if I show up as myself, I will die.
Mm.
Like, we have too many examples that that could be true, right? For us to believe otherwise. And so when I see that reflected in the reality that we're in now, it makes me sad because that's not true. You can show up and be who you are and not die. You can show up and live and thrive and actually help other people live and thrive
Mm.
as they are. You can do that. That can be your life. That can be your reality. So I try to be very mindful of how I lean into the world I want to see, right? Not ignoring it, but just sort of putting my focus on where it feels more joy, more love, more peace, more kindness. I focus my attention on more examples of that kindness and acceptance versus focusing my attention on something incredibly draining, which is more examples of the same, the same negativity. I really am conscientious of where I put my attention.
Yeah. I love that. Lean into the world I want to see. That's a really good phrase there.
Yeah.
The people that I really resonate towards is the people that are, like me, deconstructing that piety and that judgment and that fear of hell, to like, okay, now what? Now how do I find my path? And now how do I see what gifts I have and see what my purpose is?
Yeah, but what if this is the path? What if it's not something other than what you're already in, right? Like, so for me, like this idea of hell is like, yeah, hell totally exists, right? And you know where it exists? Like here in your mind. Like, what are you leaning into? You can be that heaven and earth. You can be that anchor here. What are you leaning into? Again, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's just like, do you want to live in a state and the resonance, the vibration, the energy of peace? Is that the channel on your radio station that you're leaning into? I'm not saying ignore the wars. It's not what I'm saying. Okay, what I'm saying is like, where's your focus? And so, like, for example, I keep thinking of this like if a kid is being bad. I have an aunt that she would yell at her kids and she was like, "You're so bad. You're so bad," like to the kid, right? And I would be like on the side, like, "No, you're not." Like, you're not bad. Don't listen to her. She's angry. What you did, you could do differently. You could do that better, but you're not bad. Because like the yelling of you're bad, like that's what she's manifesting. The kid's hearing I'm bad, she's seeing that the kid is bad, and the reality is that kid is going to continue to behave in the way that the words are coming at that child, right? And that's the only thing she's going to see. That's what she's reinforcing, bad behavior, right? I'm not saying I have the keys to how to help a kid thrive. That's not what I hope I'm not giving that impression because I have no idea. I'm just trying to help this kid, me, Lisann, thrive, right? And so I get to meet the other kids that are adults in the same space. But when I see that labeling, I try to be really conscientious of like, how can I support here without undermining a parent? You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's a delicate dance. And sometimes all I can do is be silent about it and like send a prayer of light and love, like magnify more of that my inner light out so that way that child can receive that even if it's not coming verbally from me.
Mm. Is there an aspect of your spiritual journey that you haven't had a chance to talk about yet that you feel led to?
I'm so sorry, I'm yawning and
Oh, don't worry.
all this stuff is happening.
I am not offended. The body is the body.
I think that this is what I would love to share with people. Please don't think that there's just like one spiritual awakening and you come out the other side and it's like, I did it. I'm done. I am spiritually awake. Right? Angels sing. There are cycles and cycles and cycles of this. This is the essence of living, right? Waking up to the next layer of your life.
Ooh.
And then if you think you're still looking for the path, look at your feet. You're on it. You're on it. This is it. It is not elsewhere. If you don't like how your feet feel in the gravel, then move to the grass. Either way, you're on it. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes we spend so much time looking out the horizon, and that could be someone else's experience, someone else's life, someone else that presents like they got their shit together. And it's like, please stop looking anywhere other than inside of you and where you are. I think that's the thing I like to talk about. People will tell me that like I think that they think they got the call as a shaman and they're very excited. And I'm like, cool, get ready to heal. Because it sounds like I just bought a magic wand. And it's like, yeah, you did. And now where do you direct the wand? At your own face. because now this is where the work begins, right at your own face. Like there's so many things that are glamorized and glorified, like the oracle who sees everything. That is, wisdom is required to speak about what you see and not to hold it as your own, and to understand that what you see can shift at any time based on individual choice, right? We see like X-Men, and we look at how they have all these powers. Like, are you paying attention to X-Men? They're all struggling with inner battles, trying to own their power and acknowledge and love who they are and be accepted by the world around them. Pay attention. It's not just the glorification of the really magical thing you can do. And the truth is, we all have magic. We all show up in our magic. You're just not glorifying that magic. But like, to be a mom, that's freaking magic. To show up wearing so many hats all the time is magic. Not everyone's capable. Here in Spanish, no son capaz, no son capaz. I keep hearing this, like they're not all capable of doing this. And we get to like, I keep seeing like all this rainbow energy as I talk to you about this motherhood stuff. Like, we get to honor it in a way that honors the reflection of who we are, not the perspective painted by society outside of us. I think that's the thing I want to talk about. Like, spiritual awakening is something that consistently happens. It happens in cycles. You choose it or not. You get the call a whole bunch of times, and maybe you always say no, but you always get the chance to do it. Life can shift and change, and you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. There's no one way to do it. Just keep looking at your feet. Pay attention to that path because you're already on it.
Oh, I love it. It's so encouraging.
I hope so.
Absolutely. Like you're just a poet when you're speaking. I like have all these notes I've been writing down, and I know I'm going to get so much more, even more out of it when the next time I listen through when I'm editing this conversation. But if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that, and how can they connect with you in general?
Across social media, it's my name, Lisann Valentine. My website, lgvalentine.com, is like, that's the link to all the things. So you can find my spiritual coaching website there. You can find links to my books, and just to reach out to me directly through lgvalentine.com.
Awesome. And do you have one last thing you'd like to say before we finish off here?
No, do you have questions that you want to ask? Because you said a couple of things about yourself, but we didn't dive into them.
Oh, that's okay. I'm here. I was here to just garner wisdom from you.
No, what is the thing that you want to know?
How do we hone our magic? How do we walk more truly as we're meant to walk?
Okay, so I keep seeing this vision of you. Do you walk barefoot in grass a lot at all, or ever? Have you ever done that?
I wish I could more, but there's so many dang ants out there, man.
Are they like fire ants?
They're like really annoying and painful. I don't know if they're fire ants, but I don't like them.
Really? Huh, I wonder if that's why that's the specific image. Because I keep seeing like your feet in grass, in soil. And you said this really annoying to be in there. So let me ask why that's the image that showed up for you. Because I redirected the question for you, not everybody.
Mm.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so what I'm getting from this image is that the annoyances are there for a reason. The things that ping at you and sting at you are asking you to pay deeper attention. And perhaps it's in the paying of attention that you can start to notice where your gifts are actually showing up, that they're not burdens or something so outside of you that they're not accessible to you. They've always been a part of you. And so the gnawing, the pushing, the biting, the pulling of like the thread on the clothes, it's like that, those minor things that are like, it's like, can you pay attention to what's showing up here for you? Like things being perfectly imperfect are that way for a reason. Like, where do you get to lean into just the mess of it, enjoying the feet digging into the soil without waiting for the disturbances to show up? It's that tweak, right? And that's where you get to see the magic. Like if your baseline is that, the minute I put my feet in the grass, I'm gonna get stung, then what reality are you leaning into? And so when you lean into a space where you're like, I'm going to start paying attention to the synchronicities that show up, the magic that shows up. That's a bird singing at the window. That's a neighbor showing up with a glass of milk when you had none. Like things like that. Like I'm going to pay attention to these things that maybe I'm not really seeing fully. So that way things that are disturbances are actually showing up to help support the way you look at the world. And then they no longer disturb you. And then you're in harmony with that. Getting so much pressure in the back of my head. I think that if we're so used to looking at the world through one set of glasses, we forget that we can take them off and put on a new pair. So decide who you're going to walk in, who you're going to walk through the world as today. The person with the new glasses or the person who borrowed glasses from someone else in her line. That's how you start paying attention to your magic. And you start seeing that what you create, what you edit, when poetry flows through you, when you're writing, when you're drawing, when you're playing, like those are the moments of magic. Those are the true moments of magic.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. So much to chew on. It's been such a pleasure. Oh, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so happy for this chance. Thank you. Hope to talk
Thank
to you
you.
again.
Same
Bye.
here, Kitty. Bye.
I really, when I rewatched this, I could see how I have a lot of insecurity, and I especially do regarding certain people that are just so special, like her, and how I carried that in my body. How it surprised me, how it threw me off balance that she was like, but what do you need? What's a question that you have for you? I was just like, it really struck me that I was so surprised about that, and that I need to just be open to that, because encouragement for me, inspiration and guidance for me is for the person that it connects with as well. And I should have questions ready. I should have more readiness there. And I wish I had kept recording as I talked to her, because she still had more to give me. I have a series of questions I ask each of my guests. How can I improve as a host? And how can I support you? And here's my notes, that the thing that she said, what would help more is to play more. That was her advice, to be a better guest, to allow myself to play and be in the moment. And yes. The big reason that I'm recording this is because she unlocked something in me with this realization that I really need to integrate what I've learned, and not just keep going and keep taking in more and more things without actually bringing it into myself and making it a part of me. So here we are. So much to take in, so much to grow from. The space is sacred. So thank you for being here. Please share with me what affected you, what you're gonna take from this, if you're comfortable with that. Like writing a comment on YouTube or connecting with me on a social that you are on, that's in the description or show notes. And thank you for being here and for listening to this. Hugs! And look out for the next episode, because I'm talking to some awesome people. Oh, and I also wanted to say, if you don't already know, I have a second podcast called Clearing the Creative, and it is all about removing that block to your purpose. What's your creative artistic block? What's your limiting belief block? And we just talk it through, and I'm really proud of the conversations that I've had, and I can feel the magic, man. I can feel that I'm accessing a wisdom beyond my own. Freer, and it feels amazing. So I want you to be sure to check out that. I will include the links to that where you can find links. But yeah, it's exciting. Okay, now I'm done. Bye. I'm so glad you're still here. Please like this video, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe. Bye!